And look, there you have it. We've got a secure HTTPS connection to Immich.local.williamsmusic. Go into, okay, let's create that DNS record for Immich.tail. Let's see if the tail works now. And there we go. We are now connected. Now we have two different users, right? We have my local computer IP address, and I have the TailScale IP address too. Hey guys, in this video, I'm gonna show you how to set up Immich, or any self-hosted app for that matter, on your local network with HTTPS and a custom domain name that can only be used on your local network. In doing so, we're gonna go over how to set up a reverse proxy using Nginx Proxy Manager. And we're gonna route all of our traffic to our server through that proxy so that we're not exposing any ports directly to our services. I'll also install TailScale into my server and show you how to set up a URL for that with HTTPS as well. And finally, we're gonna set up just a really easy to use dashboard that is going to show us all of the traffic that's going into our server so that we can kind of monitor who is actually connecting. Okay, so what I have here is my Ubuntu server on the right side of the screen and my web browser running on my PC right here. Let's draw out what this network is looking like, right? Let's put in a router here. Okay, and let's put in my computer. So this is my PC right here. And then let's throw in our Ubuntu server. So here's my PC, here's my server, this whole box, and then here's my whole network, right? So we're just operating within our network. Before we install anything, let's get the IP addresses for both of my devices right here, just so that we know who is who in our network, okay? So in my Windows computer, I'm gonna open up a terminal and just write IP config. And then we are gonna look for that Ethernet adapter, which is right here. So no, if you're also kind of confused as to like which IP address is which, you can also just go into the network and internet settings and then find that IPv4 address. Let me go ahead and copy that and paste that in. Okay, let's get the IP address for our Ubuntu as well. I'm gonna open up a terminal here and type in IP address. And let me just make sure we're on the bridged adapter. Let me do that. And then let's write IP address. This is gonna be our IP address of Ubuntu. Okay, so now we know how to communicate between the two. So first thing, let's go ahead and make sure that we have Docker installed. And to do that, just go to the Docker docs, and I'm just gonna breeze through copying and pasting each of these. So now, before I install Immich on here, I'm gonna install a different Docker application called Portainer, and that's just going to give me a good visualization of all of these containers that I'm running. So I'm gonna make a directory called Docker, where I'm gonna put all my Docker apps, right there. Now I'm gonna CD into Docker. So that's basically getting in here. And I'm gonna make a directory for Portainer. Okay, see that popped up right there. And then I'm gonna CD into Portainer. That's going in here. And then I'm gonna get a Docker Compose file from my website to quickly install Portainer. And we're gonna grab this Docker Compose file, and I'm gonna create that with nano docker-compose.yml. And I'm gonna paste that in there. I'm gonna write that, and you can see it's right there. Now I'm going to take it up with Docker. Sudo docker compose up D for detached mode. So if I look at that Docker Compose file again, we should see that we should have the user interface running on port 9443. So let's verify that. LocalHost 9443. Okay, and it looks like Portainer now runs default on a HTTPS port. So with a self-signed cert. So I'm gonna hit accept the risk, and then I'll just go to the get started. Okay, so We have our environment tier, which is local. And I have 1 stack and 2 containers. And that is just Portainer, okay? So the next thing I'm gonna do is install Immich, so immich.app. Getting started, install, docker compose. I'm gonna take the recommended path, and then we're gonna create this Immich app directory and go ahead and just fetch their docker compose file and their environmental variables file. And now I'm gonna paste that command in to make the Immich app directory, and I've already CD'd into it. And then we're gonna get the docker compose file. So that's gonna be in here, Immich app, docker compose, and we're gonna get the .env file. And you can't see it right here either, but it is there if I do a nano.env, and you can see we've got our upload location and our database persisted locations. So that when I run this, it's going to create the library and the Postgres folder right next to my Docker Compose. You should change the password, but let's just keep it default for this tutorial. So now we can take up Immich. Sudo docker compose up D. Okay, so Immich is up and running. Let's see if we can see it in our Portainer application here. Now I have Portainer and I have Immich. Let's go ahead and just take a quick look at that, see what we see. So we see all 4 of those containers in our stack, and we can even see that the Immich is running on port 2283. Okay, so let's just verify. Let's go to localhost 2283, and we have our welcome to Immich. So what have we done? We've got 2283 mounted from the Docker container to our server itself. Okay, so we've set up Immich and we've also set up Portainer. Now Immich is listening on port 2283 and Portainer is listening on 9443. So let's make a note of that. And we've binded that to the server on all network interfaces, meaning that I can access both of these guys from the network. Okay, so let's try that out. Let's grab this IP address, and I'm gonna throw that IP address with 2283. And there you go. See, that is the Immich application that we have just created. So of course, it's just HTTP. We get that not secure. So what do? Well, we need a reverse proxy. And I'm going to use Nginx Proxy Manager because it is so user-friendly, okay? So I am going to go back to my website because I've got a handy Docker Compose file and Nginx Proxy Manager. And I am just going to go ahead and install Nginx Proxy Manager with GoAccess in one stack, just for simplicity. GoAccess is going to read the logs from Nginx so that we have a nice, beautiful dashboard, and that's going to be on this port. So let's go ahead and copy this guy, make directory for Nginx, and then cd into Nginx. And now we are going to create that Docker Compose file with nano docker-compose.yml. And I'm just going to paste in that Docker Compose file. So the reverse proxy is acting as the web server for our server. So it's listening on port 80 for HTTP, port 443 for HTTPS, and then we're going to have our admin panel binded to port 81, and then GoAccess, the dashboard, is going to be on port 7880. So I'm going to make a change to this. I want to just get all of the logs like that, and let's write that out. So let's take up our Nginx Proxy Manager, sudo docker compose up D. That should be up and running. Let's just hop into Portainer real quick. So you can see that I now have the Nginx stack, and then I have the GoAccess and the Nginx Proxy Manager. The web interface for Nginx Proxy Manager is running on port 81. So let's go to localhost 81 right here. Okay, and I should also note, that we have that port binded to the server too, so we can access it from here as well. Okay, so if I go to that IP address and type in 81, you see we have 81. open. So let's go ahead and draw that out real quick. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is not access Immich directly by 2283. We want to go through our HTTP port into Nginx and have that proxy. So let's create a URL that we're going to route to Immich via reverse proxy. So I'm just going to use my browser on my computer, and that initial email address and password are right here. So that's going to be admin@example.com, password change me. Go ahead and sign in here. All right. Full name, Thomas Wild. Okay, password is change me, and we're gonna go with the same password. Okay, so what we want is for our URL, which is gonna be imich.local, and then you need a domain name. I'm gonna use my wildebeestmedia.com. We're gonna have Nginx Proxy Manager route that with HTTPS to that port 2283, okay? So really, this should be moved here. So we want this to get routed to our Nginx Proxy Manager port, and then it's going to get to Immich. Okay, so inside Nginx Proxy Manager, let's go to our dashboard here and then proxy hosts. And then we are going to add a new proxy host. So this was Immich. We're going to call this .local, and then our actual domain that we own, wildebeestmedia.com. I'm giving this local domain so that one, I know that this is a domain that's only going to be used on the local network, but then we can also do a wildcard in front of that to work with any other service that's also running on the local network. So then where are we going to reroute this traffic? We're going to route it to this guy, to our server IP address, followed by the port 2283. So that's this guy. Get rid of all this. And then 2283. So now this is where the cool part comes in, okay? So we're going to get a certificate and force SSL, and we're going to utilize our DNS provider to get that cert. So we need to get a CloudFlare API token. So let's go ahead and get that guy. I'm going to go into my CloudFlare account. You can just do a search for API tokens, and we can do this in the profile settings right here, and then hit create token. And then we can just use this edit zone DNS, use template. So zone DNS edit, and then we are going to include a specific zone, which is going to be wildebeestmedia.com. Let's go to continue to summary and create the token. So let's copy that. I'm also going to put this in my notepad too, because we might use this in more than one place. So let's get that, and we're going to put that right here. Okay, and then we're going to agree to the Let's Encrypt terms of service. And we're going to hit save. Okay, so we do need to create a DNS record for our local domain so that CloudFlare can tell our connection to route that to the IP address of the server. So let's go back into CloudFlare, go to the domain, go to DNS, and then click add a record. So this record, we're going to do star local. So basically all subdomains of the local subdomain are going to point to that server, our server IP address. And then just take off the proxy so that it's DNS only. And then we're going to save that record. So let's go ahead and see if that is now wired up. Go to imich.local, and look, there you have it. We've got a secure HTTPS connection to imich.local.wildebeestmedia going to the same port here. Okay, but we still have access to this port, right? So how do we ensure that we're only going through the reverse proxy, imich.local.wildebeestmedia.com? And I just want to make sure this is clear. This is only accessible from within the network, right? We don't have any port forwarding open from our router. So if we want to limit that access to this pipe, we're going to say, hey, we want to just bind it to only the localhost network interface. that is this guy, right? We want this pipe to be inside of the server, listening to local connections only. Okay, we're gonna nano that docker-compose.yml, and then basically we're just gonna bind this to 127.0.0.1, which is the localhost IP address, and then write that, and then we're gonna take the container down, and then let's take it back up again. So let's see if we can still connect on the localhost inside of the server. Okay, and we can. Now on my computer, on my PC, let's see if we can hit up Immich using the IP address. We can't, right? So we removed that pipe. It's no longer open to other network interfaces, but we can still go through port 80 and port 443, right? So let's refresh. Okay, so we got a bad gateway. Let's actually try changing the proxy destination to not the IP address of this server, but basically the localhost IP address. So let's come in here and let's do 127.0.0.1 like that. And let's save that. All right, and now let's see if this works now. Okay, so the reason why Nginx Proxy Manager isn't able to reverse proxy us to Immich is because it's being run in the Docker container with its own IP address. So we need to run it in the host network mode. So let's hop back over into our Nginx and nano that docker-compose.yml. So set network mode to host so that it thinks it's basically running as the host within the host network. So hopefully that should fix our problem here. We're gonna write that, and then now we're gonna take that down and take it back up. Okay, now that that's running in host mode, let's make sure we can still access this. Okay, so let's see if this works now. And there we go. We got imich.local.wildebeestmedia.com. And if I try to access it directly with the IP address and port, it's not working. Let's go to the GoAccess. That was running on port 7880, right? Okay. And check this out. We've got all these requests already to our server going through Nginx Proxy Manager. Okay, so where have the requests been going? We got 81 hits to imich.local.wildebeestmedia.com. Browser, we have Chrome, and then IP address. So this is my local IP address of my PC, right? It's a local IP, so it's unknown. No, this doesn't know. It's not a public IP address, right? It's just the local IP address. That's where all the requests have been going. So pretty cool. I can see that we have, one established connection. Okay, so let's take another approach. Let's also do this with TailScale too. Okay, so we're gonna set up TailScale on the server. I already have it installed on my PC. And then we could also do it from a mobile device. And of course, the cool thing about TailScale is it puts all of these devices on a TailScale network with each their own TailScale IP address. Okay, on the server, I'm gonna go to TailScale and I'm gonna log in. Okay, and then now I'm gonna add a device and go to Linux server, and then I'm just gonna hit generate install script, and we're just gonna copy that and paste that in there. So that's going to create a tail node on our server here. Okay, let's see if our server is now connected. It is. We can see it right here, connected, and we have this TailScale IP address. So let's see if we can go ahead and connect straight to Immich from that IP address. Let's copy that. And then on my computer, note that I am connected to TailScale. So I'm on my tailnet. So that was 100.109.166.25. And so that's just going right to my Nginx port 80, right? So let's see if we can get to port 2283. Okay, and it's not gonna let me get there directly because of that binding to the 127.0.0.1. So let's make sure we're going through our Nginx Proxy Manager. Let's add another proxy host. And this one I'm going to call Immich.tail.wildebeestmedia.com. And again, we're going to go to 127.0.0.1, port 2283, go to SSL. We're going to say request a new SSL certificate, say force, DNS. This is going to be CloudFlare. We're going to use that same API token as before and agree. And of course I can go ahead and hit the block common exploits, might as well, and hit save. Okay, let's create that DNS record for Immich.tail. So add a record, and I'm going to do *tail, DNS only, and then we're going to go to that IP address, the local IP address. Save that. All right, let's see if our proxy is working. So I'm going to go to Immich.tail.wildebeestmedia.com, and look at that, we are connected. So what happens if I turn off my TailScale? All right, disconnected, right? I am no longer connected. Let's try to refresh this. You know what? I just made it. I made it. I was like, how is that happening? Okay, so we don't want to go to the IP address of the server. We want to go to the TailScale IP address of the server, okay? Not the local IP address assigned by the router. So that is the 100.109.166.25. There we go. Okay, now that that record has propagated, we can see that Immich.tail.wildebeestmedia is not working, right? Because I am disconnected from the tailnet. But when I connect, let's see what happens. Connected, let's see if the tail works now. And there we go, we are now connected. So I could do this on my mobile device too, if I didn't want to go through setting up the hotspot and whatnot, but basically that Immich.tail.wildebeestmedia.com is always going to work. Even if I'm off of my network, as long as I'm connected to the TailScale app on my phone, that local URL will work. So let's check out the server stats now. Okay, and then we can see that that has refreshed, and we can see now that we have accepted connections from Immich.tail. And then look, we have two different users, right? We have my local computer IP address, and I have the TailScale IP address too. Now, of course, with my other services, I could do the same thing that I did with Immich to make sure that it's always being served on HTTPS. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I think I've kind of covered how to set that up with Nginx Proxy Manager. All right, guys, so we got Immich up and running on our local network with HTTPS and our custom domain, and we even have a dashboard to view all the connections to our server through Nginx Proxy Manager. Though I would say the one caveat of using the DNS technique to get your certs is that your server does need internet access, so it can't just be an offline server. If it were an offline server, then you would have to do a self-signed certificate method. But I really wanted to have that domain. I didn't have to host my own DNS server or anything like that. And now I have Immich running on the local network. If you watched all the way up to now, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more videos like this. Please leave your feedback down in the comments. I love seeing people's experiences on setting this kind of stuff up. So let me know if this helped you at all. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. All right, see ya.